I am in Philadelphia, outside Independence Hall, surrounded by monuments to some great women and men, great ideas, and incredible heroic guts that they took on 250 years ago. I am Mark Stewart. Come join me. It's a little cold now here in April, but we will be back in July. I do want the monuments of those who surround us now. Robert Morris, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, Martha Adams, John Adams, the slaves who served General then President Washington in the house up there are memorialized, commemorated here in the Independence Hall district of Philadelphia. So, I crave recognition of just how much heroism they had. The guts that went into fighting against the unstoppable, to that point, British Royal Army and Navy. And these men and women took this on with everything to lose and a tiny increment, an increment in freedom that some would consider extraordinary. I do. And they certainly did. Because in fighting for a new nation and the freedom of individuals within that new nation, they risked their lives. Had the revolution failed, the leaders would have been hanged. That was the likely outcome if Washington and his troops didn't succeed. The leaders of the American Revolution were, in their personal lives, very prosperous. Okay? They didn't have to work. They lived with relative freedom, unseen by anyone's sort of royalty in the Western world. And yet they fought for an incrementally better amount of freedom. Had the revolution failed, those names I mentioned would not even be mentioned in history books. Franklin maybe would be noted as an inventor in the colonies who was imprisoned after the revolution and killed when it failed. Were risking, well, they gave up a good portion of their lives slogging away in frozen winter campgrounds, deprived of food and sanitary conditions. In the summer, when the fighting season would come around, they risked getting a ball or a bayonet into them. And some of them stayed with Washington for 8 straight years, rarely visiting home. Washington himself visited Mount Vernon, we believe, only once in the 8 years from 1775 to 1783. They had a lot of guts. And again, they had more prosperity. The average American colonist, not the rich ones, the average was well wealthier than his English counterpart back home. The level of freedom they had, they would almost never see a British official. They weren't condemned to regulations and paperwork. They were relatively free and thought more. So, I mentioned joining. We convene in July. It will be warmer here. We are members of the Constitution Party that would like to have you join in something that won't have to be bloody, but could be very momentous, because, as you know, we are in far more tyranny now from government than our founding fathers ever experienced. And we have the chance to peacefully change that around. Please look at constitutionparty.com. Please consider joining us online for conferences whenever you can. And if you're available in mid-July to come to Philadelphia, we welcome you here. There will be a pretty exciting event. Thanks for listening here.